Hello, happy Wednesday, September 9th, 2020. You are here with the Future History Podcast for another wonderful day and episode.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. Kicking around a lot of different ideas lately.
All right, very humid out today.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get rolling with this day in history. Always interesting to hear about what's gone on this day in years past. So 1776, the Continental Congress officially adopted the term United States as opposed to the United Colonies. So that is something that obviously still carries on till today.
Little terminologies that make a big difference.
The United States, recognizing the fact that they're actually
sovereign states
as opposed to colonies.
Yeah.
1971, you had the Attica prison riot in Attica, New York, which inmates took 39 prison guards and staff hostage. They were protesting over overcrowding in the prison, things such as that. It lasted from the 9th all the way to the 13th. All in all, 10 hostages were killed, 29 inmates were killed. So,
wow.
Yeah, pretty deadly. And that was Attica, New York. Today's birthdays: Hugh Grant, born in 1960.
Yeah, Mickey Blue Eyes.
Otis Redding, born 1941, unfortunately died at the age of 26. Now,
how did he pass away?
Some type of accident, I believe. I don't remember if it
great
was a plane crash
great
or
artist.
a car crash. I believe. Very important day in pop culture history today. On this day, 1956, Elvis Presley performed on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh.
He signed on for 50 G's for 3 episodes.
Wow.
And the viewers, what's interesting is, to show you how nowadays with cable TV and things like that, viewership is very diversified.
Mm-hmm.
Back then when Elvis performed, you had 60 million people tuning in, which was 82% of people watching TV that particular day tuned into that performance.
Wow.
It's crazy. So what's also interesting about it was Ed Sullivan was filmed in New York. The show was filmed in New York. Elvis performed it remotely because he was filming Love Me Tender in Los Angeles. So he performed in L.A., and they remotely shot it over to New York, and then it went out to everybody. He was only 21 when he performed, and he performed the songs Don't Be Cruel, Ready Teddy, and probably the most famous performance of the day, Hound Dog. And he was
Jonna loves the Hound Dog.
Yeah, my daughter is, which is amazing. All these years later, she's like a major Elvis fan. But anyway, he was only 21 when he filmed it, so he was just on the cusp of becoming a superstar.
Yeah, and kind of on the cusp of manhood.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what's interesting too is there was real issue with the performance because, and everybody who knows music is aware of this at this point, the filming of his whole, from toe to head, and gyrations and things like that he was doing, there was a big issue with that.
The pelvis shaking.
Yeah, so on one of the performances, I believe it was the third one, they actually did not film him below the waist. So they only filmed him from the waist up on the third performance. But on the initial run, he was filmed head to toe. So anyway, that was in 1956, Elvis Presley.
What a world.
Yeah, so what's new and exciting in your life today? What's the word?
Been doing a lot of thinking, if you really want to know.
Sure.
Been doing a lot of thinking about a cannabis cafe coming to New York because, as you may know, there is marijuana legalization's up for federal legalization, I think, this week.
Oh, okay.
They're going and going to discuss taking it off of the Schedule 1 drug class.
Well, that's the big difference, right? Some states it's legal, but federally it's not. That's odd.
Yeah,
it's odd.
It is odd, and it's like a patchwork thing, and it shouldn't be that way because what can get you in serious trouble in one state shouldn't affect you in another. It's not.
How many? Do you know approximately how many states it's legal in?
I think more than half now.
Okay, that was my question. If it was a majority,
I think it's around 30.
Wow.
I know Maine, it's recreationally legal. Massachusetts, I think, is there now.
Oh, so it's not just medicinal; it's legal.
Recreational,
Wow.
as it should be.
Now, again, I know you're not an expert on the trade of marijuana at this point, but are they, like, can Joe down the street sell it legally to, all comers? Or
I think, again, what the problem is the different patchworks. What Maine recognizes as recreation might be totally different from what California recognizes. So I don't know.
Colorado was the first state, I think, right?
Oregon and Colorado.
Oregon and Colorado.
I think it was called Proposition 20, if I'm not mistaken.
And I heard that the profits on the market went right through the roof as far
It overshot alcohol.
Yeah.
So, but I know, like, in certain states you can grow, I believe, 25 square feet on your own property.
Oh, okay.
And then I think other states you can't, but you can still purchase. So I don't know.
At this stage of the game, I think it's so, again, I'm not somebody that, I'm not pro everything, just legalize. I really want to think that through as far as the heavy duty drugs. But marijuana at this point, if you're going to legalize alcohol, and which they did, you weigh it out and it's really no difference.
Right.
In fact, you can make a strong argument that marijuana is a lot less harmful.
Oh, I mean, it's not,
it's
not a strong
beneficial.
Argument, it is a fact.
Yeah, and a lot more beneficial. I mean, you'll always see the reports coming out that they try to show you how harmful it is and how terrible it is for the lungs and everything else.
Then eat it.
There you go.
It has absolutely zero effect when you eat it.
That was my next question about that. With edibles, how powerful are edibles compared to smoking it?
About a year ago, I started dabbling with edibles.
Okay.
And at first, it's not something I would drive on. It's not something I would even necessarily walk out of.
Is it a slow onset, or does it kind of like...
Takes about a half an hour.
Okay.
But at first, just like when you smoke, I think a lot of people who might smoke cannabis out there understand, after a month or two of doing it kind of, regularly, that psychedelic intensity dissipates, and then you get that relax factor kind of that you're looking for. The same applies to edibles.
I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about edibles because I'm curious,
should.
And I've never done it. So I would...
What I would say is, at first of all, it depends on how much you eat, just like how much alcohol you drink.
Right.
And when you eat it, it's going through all 60 feet of your digestive system. So for all that time, it's soaking in.
All that
so you have 4 to 6 hours instead of the 30, 40 minutes you get.
All the blood vessels and everything, it's kind of, getting
it diffuses
into the blood
and osmosis and all those different...
All those scientific terms.
Yeah, exactly.
Biological terms. Very interesting.
So if you overdo it, it could really be psychedelic. And I'm sure...
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
People who've done edibles have said...
In some degrees, it could be more powerful than mushrooms even, maybe.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it lays you out, if you're not
responsible. Some people don't know what they're doing. They make some brownies and they just think
you're not eating a tray at Duncan Hines. You got to be careful.
Yeah, it's heavy duty.
That's what that does is my father's argument all along, and I don't know if he watches this show or not, but his argument all along when I used to say to him, marijuana's not so bad because of this. And when I was a younger person, I would always go back and forth with him. His big argument was, you can't, I enjoy alcohol for the taste. On a hot day, I like to have a cold beer, and you don't have to get buzzed or drunk. You can just enjoy a beer, and that's it. I love gummy bears and gummy worms, so now...
Yeah. Plus that.
Yeah.
So I really can relax with that.
Yeah, so now I can enjoy the flavor of marijuana, but,
My bitter argument to that would be that it's not his business.
Yeah.
What I like.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All adults. He wasn't saying don't do it. He was just. It was more like I asked him what his thoughts were.
Yeah, I understand.
He's always the type of guy where he's a real live and let live type of guy. He doesn't. He doesn't.
The reason it's so important is because for the past 50 years, and now we're living through these riots again, and things are kind of coming full circle from back when.
United States chaos, right?
A huge thing that they could do to alleviate some of that would be to get rid of some of these silly laws about cannabis. Because there's a lot of people, including white men from the 70s, who are still in prison.
Jail. You free up a lot of prison space.
Right. You could actually focus on true crime rather than victimless crimes.
Well, that to me is, you know, I think the only thing I could see marijuana being a crime, there's only really two or three aspects. One is obviously if you sell to a minor, which is the same with alcohol.
Cigarettes as well.
Correct. And I think that you do have to. There's always an argument. A lot of people say I drive better high when I smoke. I'm more concentrated. I think that really has to. Some sort of laws have to be enacted where.
Well, have you ever looked at the statistics of accidents that are? You should.
Yeah.
They don't happen.
I've only used my own experience.
Right, which is.
And I do not drive. I haven't smoked in a while, but I do not drive well when I'm smoking. I don't. So
it's good that you acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Listen,
of course, I don't drive well drinking.
The thing is, though, is that people pop pills all day.
Yes.
And drive around.
That's another.
So I don't want to. I can't. Yeah. It needs to just let it go. Yeah. It's like enough's enough.
But are there issues with that? If somebody's again, I don't know that's something that I'd have to look into before I speak on.
Pill driving.
Yeah. Is there some type of law if you get pulled over and you have a whatever prescription for Xanax and you took Xanax?
I'm gonna just go out on a whim and
somebody could comment on that maybe and let us know because I don't know. I got to look it up.
I think it depends on if they. I mean, obviously you don't smell like beer, so it must be difficult for a cop to determine. But if you look visibly impaired, that would be a DWI.
Yeah.
Because you're not. I mean, on the bottle of medication it says do not operate equipment.
Yeah, or motor vehicle.
Or motor vehicle. Like it's common knowledge. But because the system works in favor of the big pharmacy companies, there's it's.
Yeah, that goes.
Meanwhile, something that's natural that grows out of the ground doesn't hurt anyone. Never has.
Well, that's the thing.
It's just ridiculous. The whole thing is.
You're still seeing the remnants of that old reefer madness culture.
Right.
And people.
And it's amazing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go. This is your. I was just.
It's just amazing to me because the government experimented with all these things. They knew full well what it was and what it wasn't. 60 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, even more, yeah.
It went against their agenda.
Yeah, well, that's what it
The internet is what foiled that plot of control.
That's why
yes.
Information is it's the scariest thing for the government.
Right.
It's the biggest tool for the public because once you get information on things and you educate, and again, it goes back to the education is the most powerful thing a person can possess.
Yes.
Education. And if you educate yourself on it and facts and figures and and like I said, I acknowledge I don't drive well on it, so it's not something I would do. But I think if you but that's the whole point with being an adult. You take responsibility for things and hey, I don't want to put somebody else's life in peril, so you know what? If I smoke, I'm going to do it on a day where I'm not driving anywhere. I'm just sitting home and watching a movie or something, or help me fall asleep. Not to go smoke and then take a drive, because for me that doesn't work. That's it's too risky. And, how's the paranoia with edibles? Because that was an issue with me in the days that I smoked. Also,
I'm a unique. Well, I don't want to say unique. I'm sure, but it doesn't. I don't get that stuff. I don't get it. I know. Listen, at first, like I was trying to say earlier. The first week or two that you decide that you're going to maybe start to indulge in that stuff, you do get paranoia. Like, there's a funny YouTube video of like a couple who, they took some edibles and they called the police and they said, hello, officer, we just ate some marijuana brownies and I think we're dying. And like the woman,
was it a prank or were they?
No, it was the real deal. It was hysterical. At one point it was like national.
So they called 911.
They called 911. They were on the phone and they said they were dying.
Okay.
So, again, it's super powerful when you're not ready and if you don't know what you're doing. Yeah. Which is why regulation is a good thing. Wow. Get it from a professional source. Yeah. Get it from regulated.
Know what you're getting.
Know what you're getting. Correct. And also, when you legalize, it makes it more difficult for a child. At 12 years old, I was able to walk out of the house and get a bag of weed, no problem. You know what I couldn't get?
Right.
Beer and cigarettes.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's just because the drug dealer does not care how old you are.
Correct. And if you can purchase it, But then how is that really going to change? You see, it could also create a problem because what could happen is kids won't have access, high schoolers won't have access to buying weed at 7-Eleven or just head shops, whatever.
Where they have all along been able to access.
So who's going to keep in business to surface the kids? The drug dealers.
Well, drug dealers are the biggest opposition to legalizing marijuana, so that's pretty amazing. But that's the whole argument with ending the war on drugs. It would destroy narcos.
Yeah. But I'm just saying now, it's like if I...
No, yeah.
I don't like selling things. I mean, for myself personally, I'm so opposed to giving minors anything that would harm them until they're of age that I would
wouldn't be consistent in your views.
But if I was of the mindset and I was a drug dealer, I wouldn't give a shit.
Right.
And I would just say, hey, listen, adults can't, children or teenagers can't go into the local shop to buy weed, so that's who my customer base is going to be. I'm going to actively hang out around high schools and stuff, or and seek out these. So
that is when you slap them with big prison sentences, and that's who you target.
But then it's like if you're doing away with all, you have to adjust the marijuana laws where it's not just
child endangerment.
That's the thing. It's got the laws. You can't do away with them. You just have to
adjust.
Yeah.
And the problem with the legal system is it moves at a snail's pace, which is a blessing and a curse.
Sure does.
But when it comes to that stuff, I just think it's like maybe 25 years overdue.
Yeah.
If not an eternity overdue.
Yep.
And it's like I always wonder, like all these politicians and lawmakers, they claim to be so well versed in history, science. They're everything, aren't they?
Right.
But
they're whatever will get your vote.
Correct.
They are.
But in history, and this is a strange issue for a lot of conservative folks out there, but in the course of time, psychedelic compounds have been some of the most profound and influential things to form societies. When you look at Mexico and their ancient society, the Aztecs and the South American Incas and all that, same thing for the Middle East, same thing for all these like early civilizations. One thing they all had in common was that they were experimenting and expanding with their consciousness.
Yeah.
And
that's only really come to, people
Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, thank God for those guys, and John Anthony West, thank God for them, because they were some of the first people that I ever personally discovered brought light to that. And Joe Rogan, for that matter, but he only obtained that from them.
Yeah, but he kind of was like the conduit between like the nerdy mainstream guys and the mainstream.
Yes.
So
good.
So good on him for that.
It's important.
It's when you look at the documents from those days, those years.
A lot of it's speculation too.
Yes, a lot of it is speculation, which is a good point to bring up because we don't know for sure.
Like when they make the burning bush argument that it was this tree that the leaves would trip you out.
You could go too far with anything.
Correct.
I think that there's clearly when you compare the data from back then and the what the documents that they were producing at that time actually said, and then you take that against somebody who's actually had that experience, and it's like, wow, these are.
You know what movie me and you both loved?
What?
Apocalypto.
Great movie.
Do you remember how when they're on the top of the pyramid and there's the guy and he's like freaking out? Like, what do you think they were alluding to?
Yes, exactly, without a doubt.
And that's Mel Gibson.
Psychedelics were a big part of that culture. I don't think that's they lived off of the land. And many of those plants.
When I went to the zoo in Ecuador, the cactuses that grew all over the zoo, which was right outside the city, were psychedelic cactuses like peyote.
Wow.
So
what a great movie Apocalypto was.
Totally great movie. Underrated movie.
Very underrated. I could watch that again. I've watched it.
It puts chills down my spine when I think of when the Spaniards are coming.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he gets through all that.
Yes.
And then smallpox.
What a brilliant movie. Like, it's such a shame that Mel Gibson has tarnished his legacy. I think he was, I think a lot of people look at him a lot differently now since he, the tape of him threatening the woman. I mean, everybody's got their own personal issues.
The Passion of the Christ was another,
But he's produced some amazing, thought-provoking films. Whether you agree with them or disagree, he still really gave it a true, honest effort to portray it the way he saw these things. But man, if you haven't seen Apocalypto, watch that film.
It's insane. It's like one of the only real movies out there that brought any light to what life may have been like. Right. And they did it like amazing.
Fascinating.
When they gave him the opportunity to run away.
Yes, and then they still like a wild animal.
Oh my God.
Great movie. Please, if you haven't seen Apocalypto, check it out.
What was his name? Jaguar Paw?
Something like
that.
Yeah. I'm sure most, right now we're still growing, so our viewership, I'm sure, has probably seen that movie. They are intelligent enough.
So what's amazing though about that group of people in Mexico at that time was the amount of people that they sacrificed.
Thousands over the course of
hundreds of thousands.
Yeah,
and in some days they would just one after the next after the next.
Yes.
Your heart would come out, your head would come off, and they would throw you down the pyramid.
Yep, right there.
And then they would
ball.
catch you.
Yeah.
Oh my God! It's like,
what
amazing. Would possess them to think to do that? Do you think that was more of like a fear tactic?
Yes. Well, I think
or a control to keep people docile.
I think it's a couple of different things. I think it's, religion in those days. It was really at its early stages as far as the way we see religion in modern times. And I think that in some of their minds, that was truly sacrificing to the God. But this shock therapy that they would give to the people where it's like, they're pulling out the heart. It is a control mechanism. Religion has always been a control mechanism.
Very difficult to cut out a heart, by the way. Not that I've ever done it.
Yeah.
But with the primitive tools that they were using and stone knives and everything, I often wonder because it's like you got to get through bone. And the only reason I know this is from in the kitchens with pigs. It's not easy. So, but they had it down to a science. They would put you on that pole and
it was like
expose your
conveyor
chest.
belt. They would just bring them in, next, and they just.
You never hear much. Did Romans do a lot of sacrificial?
Not to the extent.
You don't hear it like that.
Yeah, not to the extent, because I believe they were pagans in the early days, the Romans. So there wasn't as much basis on religion as you see with the
I find like
their form of sacrifice was the pleasing the emperor.
Right.
When they would sacrifice the gladiators or the people fighting in the Colosseum.
That was another great movie, by the way.
Another great one. I love those types of movies. I mean, you can really miss on them, but if you hit on one of those movies, like a historical...
Do you have a favorite Roman emperor?
They were so different that it's hard to really, it's hard to... I think that...
It's just crazy because, when you think of Caesar,
he had
one life. It wasn't like he was the entire expanse of Rome.
It's very hard to pick because, like I said, there's so many different periods of the Roman Empire. It was a republic before that, and it's just...
How did they get the word out to people? How did they vote?
What do you mean? Oh, to spread...
how did they get news? Like, the empire was tremendous.
Yeah.
Same for the Greeks. And
covered the known world at that time.
And then what I find really amazing is how Rome transferred to Constantinople.
Yeah.
And it operated out of Turkey and modern-day Istanbul.
The Roman Empire split into two. You had the East and the West. Yeah, it's... in those days, everything was just done by human travel, and it was, passed on from one person to the next.
Did you ever watch Lord of the Rings?
No. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I've never really
I recommend that.
Yeah.
There's a point, though, where I think it's in the third movie, and I'm pretty sure, because J.R.R. Tolkien was like a genius, and he understood history. And,
right.
I'm pretty sure when Mordor's armies release and they start coming out, there was like sentries looking, waiting for that to happen.
Yeah.
So they would climb to the top of peaks and light fires, and that would signal to let's say 25 miles away, they would light a fire.
Oh, and
so it was a chain of fires letting them know one thing.
Right.
I'm sure that they had that too.
There was systems like that, of course. There was, like I said, I mean, anything that a human can do, you're not relying on any type of phone lines, any type of electrical impulse. It's just all
that is what blows my mind.
Yeah.
They were able to take. I mean, it was all done through military
Well,
might.
now you're seeing why history and technology advances so quickly today.
Right.
Because things are done in an instant.
Right.
Back then, things
forever.
took time to evolve, and that's very.
I think that the story
different
of
time.
Caesar is like how they all turned on him and stabbed him, like
Yeah.
they mutilated him
Et tu,
essentially.
Brute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why he's still talked about till
It's a
till modern
ridiculous
times.
story. Imagine in the Senate when they meet on Capitol Hill or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that would be
Yeah.
the biggest thing to hit America.
Yeah. Yep.
If they all turned on the president, whoever the president could be,
Yeah.
regardless. I mean, that would be ridiculous.
It's very interesting, though.
In a sense, the JFK assassination was that,
Yep.
except, modern day.
Well, there's always been these factions within the different organizations of government who had their own agendas.
Right, they don't help each other.
In fact, you ever watch the show Homeland that I
Right,
told you about? You see that within the CIA, there's different rogue factions that have their own, they're answering to different superiors, and they had, one group in the CIA thinks that one plan is taking place, another group it's like they're working against each other almost.
Right.
And a lot of those things are to keep the chaos, because then the guy in charge, it's never like everybody's teaming up around him, but when that happens, that's when you see something like an assassination or something like that.
When they all unify for one.
Right.
It's like the meeting of the families.
So keeping all the factions below you, keeping
Arguing.
each other in
Right.
check,
Keeps the president
right.
safe.
Kim Jong-un is a prime example of this in Korea. He likes to keep them all tattling on each other, even the public, and it's just
Create a switch.
nobody can create any sort of allegiance.
Which is what we're dealing with COVID on a person-to-person
Yeah,
basis.
we are.
You have a house party,
Yeah.
your neighbor calls.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
It's all a form of control.
It's amazing to me. I don't want to give this. I don't even want to say his name, but let's call him the jerk with the rainbow hair.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
He is being rewarded with millions
Yeah.
for being a snitch.
Yeah. Times are different.
Can you imagine?
He would have been gone.
He would have been under. He would have been in the bottom of the ocean. So when they all say they're hard, I don't know.
Because nobody nowadays has that sort of Omerta.
No, they don't.
Nobody lives by that code anymore.
No, they don't. It's amazing to me, though, that this guy is now richer than ever before.
Yeah. There is no loyalty anymore.
His album is called Tattletale.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I mean, brilliant, but God, is this where we're at?
Well, yeah.
That's what hurts me.
I watched a movie. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
I watched a movie or a show a few years ago, and they showed they flashed forward to the future of what American culture would be, and they had some 13-year-old taking some candies and just dumping them all over him, and watching a guy like this rainbow-haired guy that we're talking about on TV, and this crazy language that's baby, goo goo gaga, and
yeah, it's literally today.
and it's American culture is just going back and back. And I'll tell you, yesterday when I sent you that interview where Joe Biden spoke to Cardi B,
I can't even, please don't do that to me.
when does I'm not even going to go into it because it gets you too riled up.
I hate her.
Yeah.
I don't like to use the word
Yeah,
hate.
let's just say we
really
dislike
don't like
her very strongly. But with that being said, how can somebody in their right mind look at a candidate that is interviewing this person and trying to get her views on what she wants, and when does logic weigh in there? And just
That's
say,
almost like if a politician was asking a mafia member, what do you want?
Right. It just
She's a criminal.
Yeah. It's just.
She was a criminal anyway.
And then in this interview, Biden was trying to tell a story and relate it to her, and you can look and you just hear crickets,
Yeah, she does not care.
Oh my gosh.
Nope.
Oh my
And you know what
gosh.
I can't stand about today's day and these people?
What?
Can the president do for me? What can they all
Well,
do
that's-
for me? No.
Yeah.
Do something for yourself. That's what betters society,
well,
you fool.
that whole party is...
it's all about me, gimme.
Well, that's how the party gets votes. That's how that party gets votes. So anyway...
I can't even talk.
Keep it on the high.
get sick.
Tomorrow or another... We won't even do it tomorrow. Maybe next week we'll tackle that. But anyway, yeah.
That's a time. I need sedatives for that one.
There is no code anymore of like decency or honesty or loyalty. It's just, but that is how.
That's why true gangs I respect.
Yeah.
Because, if the ones that are really hard to infiltrate, I say to myself, wow, they are really like these creatures drifting through time.
You know how they keep that. You know how you keep that loyalty? Right. You
get rid of problems real quick.
I have to scare you.
Right.
You being in trouble by me
is worse
than you getting in trouble by the government.
Right.
You have to fear me. It's not about liking me. I don't want you to like me.
That's why the Mexican cartels
fear me.
Rule.
Right. Yeah, and that's
because they will do what they have to
do. Brutal.
The worst.
But that's why. And that's why in the old days the mafia would look. If you do something or you turn somebody in or you turn snitch, your days are numbered.
But at least 9 out of 10 times when the mob whacked you, it was just a couple bullets in the back of your head.
Well, they did it with class.
Right.
And they did it. Well, times were different back then also because a lot of guys kept to that code. Once drugs infiltrated the gangs and the mafia and everything else, that's when you started to get the weasels and the rats, because you become a junkie.
Yep.
And that's why
you have no loyalty at that point, and they understood that.
Yeah. So that's why they used to say they didn't really care if somebody got drunk or was drinking. They didn't want you to mess with drugs because they knew anybody that messes with drugs, you get stupid and you become a rat or a weasel.
Even back then, I'm sure they weren't friendly to the idea of marijuana,
Nothing. They didn't want anybody doing
alcohol.
Anything. They didn't know enough
stogies.
about it either. It wasn't, these old guys, the old timers, like the Carlo Gambinos and those guys, these guys were old men. By the time you're getting into the 60s, 70s, they were old men already. These
they were from another world.
Yeah, and then in those days, it was, honor and things like that were a big part of it. But I
just got to use the restroom, so entertain everybody.
We got to check your bladder, bro.
I know. I drink like 12 cups
Holy
of coffee.
cow. So, that's good. So, but in the old days, they didn't, the mafia was, drugs were not a big part of it, so they really didn't have to worry about it. But once that infiltrated that lifestyle, and that was it. You saw it illustrated in Goodfellas. Once Henry Hill started messing with the drugs and everything else, he became a real loose cannon, and Paulie knew it. And that was why him and Jimmy, Robert De Niro, really tried to, they were going to try to off him because of the fact that he would have snitched him right out. And that's the change. Nowadays, you see that in the rap game and things like that. These guys, one guy snitches on another guy, but that code called Omerta was big in the mafia. And something else, I wanted to wait for you to come back. Also, the reason that they have to be so brutal nowadays is that they're, another thing about the mafia was they wouldn't go and shoot your wife and your family.
No, just you.
They would take you out. Now, there's such a chance that guys are going to snitch that they'll
kill everyone.
They have to strike it's got to be so brutal that it's like your worst nightmare coming true. And that's what they do.
They literally make your name disappear.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
They in a heinous, gross, disgusting
for the
way.
world to see, by the way.
Right. And that's why they're feared. But it's
you
all
touched
a matter
on a
of
word, by
control.
the way, that Omerta.
Yeah.
That is like a lot of people aren't aware of that.
Yeah.
And that is the oath of silence that these wise guys and whatever they are, they take. And it's just, I don't know if you come across that anymore. I look at pictures of mobsters today who are getting arrested in Staten Island, all these areas. They look like crap.
Right.
They don't look like anything, like any kind of force. No. I could care less about them.
Because a lot of them dabble in the drug business.
Right.
Not all of them. But
what an amazing scene, though, in The Godfather, when Sollozzo comes to try to convince the Corleone family to get into the drug business.
Yes, yep. Well,
man, did they really highlight the decision?
Yeah.
The question.
Sure. Well, Vito, Don the Don, Marlon Brando, was from the old school, you know, and they show that in Godfather 2 when they go back to his beginnings, right when the Italians came over here from Italy and the Sicilians. You know, he's from that. He's one of the original heads of a family.
Right.
And those guys, their code of honor and ethics, it was very, you know, their family values, you know, they were a different breed, you know. And I mean, when you look at the guys nowadays, look at even Sammy the Bull. He gets out of the mob, you know.
He's another one.
But look what happens to him. He gets popped when he goes to Arizona for ecstasy.
Right.
You know, it's like
they can't stop.
They can't. It's just easy money for these guys. But you become a loose cannon, and that's what everything that the mob feared came to fruition.
They knew what they were taught. The old timers knew what was coming. They did.
They knew. Drugs have been around a long time.
Opium.
Heroin's been around. They didn't just come out in the 60s and all of a sudden, you know, these drug dens.
Hundreds of years.
Yeah, and they knew what would happen if their guys mixed with it. And
particularly in Italy, because Italy was a portal for trade.
Yes.
And illicit stuff,
yes.
you know, and still is.
From
the Andrangheta family,
East.
right.
Yeah.
The Balkans and all that, and it's like this little chain. They know what they're doing. It's always been. Marco Polo is...
Especially Sicily.
Right.
Sicily has all sorts of mixes of people in it, and that's where, you know, they knew it. But
See,
they knew it.
I'm actually not going to go there, but Sicily's a very strange place to this day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Very diverse.
The mafia over there is still very real.
Yes, it is.
And I think it's interesting. I think they still have more power.
It actually is stronger now than it was 20 years ago. What happened was it kind of, a whole mess of them got popped, and then they ended up, and now it's slowly gaining traction again.
And also, it's the risk I don't think is as worth it in this country to be caught.
Yeah. Too easy to get caught.
It's too easy to get caught. It's
technology.
The jail time is no joke.
Yeah.
Like
technology is another thing that brought the mafia down.
Yeah.
You know, and they say that they just in those days you could go upstairs, make a phone call. Now it's the stuff is so high tech that they're going to track everything. They know where you are at all times.
And if you don't have a cell phone, they automatically know that you're like the guy.
I mean, it's just. It's almost, I don't even know the guys that are involved how they get away with it now, because it's just, you know, but they...
Omerta.
Yeah, well, but I mean, as far as just the technology that's available to law enforcement to kind of infiltrate these guys, it's amazing. And they didn't have that, 50 years ago.
That's why when you go out and you're a bouncer, so I'm sure you ran into plenty of people who love to run around how tough they are.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm a hitman.
The guy always benched more than me.
Right,
but when I was younger, I benched more than you. When I was this, I was stronger than you. You know, like they're always living on past glories.
And it's not just that, but if you were really the badass that you're claiming, you would not be talking about it.
Yep.
Which is my big problem with gangster rap, my big problem with all of that stuff. Like
boasting and
one person did. His name was Bobby Shmurda.
Okay.
He made this song called I'm not going to say it, but and the police put together these lyrics, and he did Hard Time for the song. He actually he whacked someone for a song on like how he whacked this kid.
Oh, okay. So
and they heard it, and what he said fit the profile of the crime scene. And I think he's getting out of jail pretty soon, but. And he didn't snitch, by the way.
Snitched on himself.
He did. But
through his own lyrics.
Exactly, bozo.
Oh, my God.
But at least he didn't snitch on anyone else.
Right.
I'll give him credit there.
Yeah.
I hate snitches. I hate that they're rewarded.
Yeah. Well, they never used to be. That's a new thing. Very new. I mean, I couldn't believe. Said this guy, when he gets out, he's going to be. But that's how you know. He's not really with any hard guys, because they would have.
Although everywhere he goes, he needs an army.
Yeah.
He actually needs an army.
Yeah.
Like he can't go where he came. I don't think he could be in like the city like he was.
These guys, honestly, it's like in the ways. When I see that type of character, and he's putting out such garbage.
He gives Mexicans a bad name, by the way.
He gives human beings a bad name. He's just
but. Mexicans are all about honor.
Yeah, they're totally different than somebody like him.
Yeah, and he's Mexican. Like that. That's his claim.
I don't look at like a white supremacist and say he's all white people, or I don't look at like a a black guy, you know, like a real hood guy, say like he's all black. You know, you can't look at the lowest echelon of a certain color and say that's, you know, you know that he's trash. That guy is just trash. But
he's racking in the millions.
He's in the millions, and that's, you know, it's a commentary on our society at this point.
Very weird. It's very weird.
You could that type of stuff
used to be
sells.
the anti-snitch was the millionaire.
Yeah.
Now
for the life of me, I don't understand that whole mind frame. But, you know, again, you can never say what you would do till you walk in another man's shoes. But, you know.
Have you watched Narcos Mexico?
No.
Man.
Good show. Is that the one about Escobar or something?
Well, there's Narcos Colombia.
Okay, and then
there's
they go
Narcos
to
Mexico.
Gotcha. Okay.
Let me tell you though, the Narcos Mexico one explains
all the cartels.
Well, how they came about.
Okay.
Originally, there was one.
Yeah, go please.
Led by this guy Felix Gallardo. I don't want to butcher his name, but Felix Gallardo something.
A Mexican guy, right?
He was ex-law enforcement.
Okay.
And he was based in Guadalajara.
Okay.
And he created the Federation.
Mm-hmm.
And it united all the Mexican states. They would have meetings. They would all do the same thing. They all flew under the same banner. And this was right around the
So is he uniting them politically, or you mean all the drug cartels? From
all the drug
states?
cartels were separate before this guy.
So he was uniting the cartels.
He united them, and he became incredibly powerful. He became incredibly rich. He was brutal, you know. But he also went under the facade of a gentleman. He was a nice-dressed guy.
Sure.
He was very mild-tempered and everything. But so at the same time as all this is going on, the DEA is getting created in the United States.
Very interesting.
And
when is this? When is this?
In the 70s.
70s?
70s, early 80s, I think. And what happened to the fall of this federation through the Guadalajaran cartel, I guess, is the murder and torture of a DEA agent named Kiki Camarena. And that prompted the United States government to say, you know what? We don't give a shit about your border. We're going in there, we're working with the government. If your government doesn't cooperate, we dominated them.
Wow.
And it put the squeeze on them, and they ended up getting this guy.
Okay.
But this guy was in touch with Pablo Escobar.
Sure.
They all had a little network.
Major player.
Yeah. And Pablo Escobar, though, in the show, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but Pablo Escobar had pet tigers.
Yeah, he had a huge zoo.
Which I'm going to actually make a comment on after this, but he basically threatened to take this guy, who was the most powerful Mexican, and feed him to the tigers if he decides to step on Pablo's toes.
Well, Escobar was a politician, too.
Escobar was
crazy.
He was a genius. He was so many different
he was
things.
A politician in Colombia.
Yep.
It's amazing.
What's amazing, though, and I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast, but hippopotamuses are not native to South America. But now they have a invasive hippo population because when Escobar was arrested, his zoo was left unmanaged, and the hippos had sex, and they produced a slew of baby hippos.
That the guy populated South America with hippopotamus. See, the drug trade, people say it's bad.
A lot came from it. You get hippos are dangerous.
Yeah, they are. They're very.
You're like in the Amazon.
Can you gotta run zigzag like this?
The thing is, those areas share land with indigenous people.
Yes.
Can you imagine being an indigenous guy on your little thing going down the river and you've never seen a hippo before?
You see that mouth open up.
And, it just flips you off of your boat. They're aggressive.
They're no joke. They are no joke.
I always wanted to actually go to his house.
Pablo?
Take a trip there, and I wanted to see because it's haunted. It's very weird.
He was just, but anyway, the Narcos, I don't want to go, because that's such an interesting story. The Narcos in Mexico, and you're seeing also the reason that these cartels take hold, the country is so corrupt.
Right.
And that's the problem. And
which is what we need to watch out for here.
Right. That's why when you start talking about holding money and, and not paying proper amounts to law enforcement, you got to be careful what you wish for. And that's a prime example, because then it's very easy for bribery to take place, like you said yesterday, and all these things to creep in. But man, those cartels are just brutal. And
you sometimes don't even know they're there.
Yeah.
I bet when I spend time in I never had an experience where I thought I was being watched.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you I was.
Because you're a foreigner down there and they don't know what.
Just 100%. There's no way that my presence went undetected.
Sure.
And so it's just like amazing to me, and they're everywhere.
Oh yeah. They are.
They're very, very powerful. The governments are very, very weak. And
very weak. Everybody's underpaid.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of poverty, and that's the problem. It's countries like that are where these rogue forces.
The same is
hold.
applicable in Italy, though.
Italy's
the police do what the
problems.
mafia says.
Yes, they're having their own set of problems over there. I mean, it's like I said, they were able to infiltrate, and back in the early 2000s, it might have even been 2000 or maybe a few years prior, but within the last 20, 25 years, there was a tremendous case in Italy where they took down about 20 or so of like the head. Could have even been a lot more. I mean, it was just a tremendous case where like they cut half of the whole mafia out in Italy. I mean, trials went on. It was very public over there, and they just eliminated them, and it really totally debilitated them for many
a while.
years.
Yeah.
But now, like I said, and you brought it up, you're seeing they're starting to,
I hear more and more about them every month.
They're always going to reinvent themselves, and they're always, it's just the way.
And Italy's also very traditional. It's very old. They have their surveillance, but they also don't.
Yeah.
The police oftentimes look away.
Yep.
So
it's cities like Naples, which are very, dirty. Not dirty, but like, there's just a lot of, crime. A lot of crime in that area and things like that.
I remember a few years ago they bombed a school.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it
is very interesting though. But like you said, it's really one of the countries that's like a crossroads between East and West. So a lot of
always has been.
A lot of things have been brought in and shipped out and so forth. So it's nice to dangle into the water.
I always figured if there was going to be any Western country that was going to be involved in getting a dirty bomb out there, it might be Italy. Through their mafias.
Yeah.
I hate to make that accusation, but I just, who else?
Very, very, nowadays you start, and they have not only problems with the mafia, there's a lot of crime syndicates, especially from Nigerians over in Italy.
Yeah.
There's a big rise in those crime syndicates over there, and they have their hands full. Not only did they have a major problem with COVID, but they're having a lot of issues with different crime syndicates. So
it's funny how you don't hear much about Europe now in COVID, and I wonder why that is. How's the recovery? I want to know. And it's like not publicized in America. It's almost as if they don't. They only wanted us to know when they were going on lockdown.
Yeah.
But now that things are open, I want to know what the hell's going on.
I don't know. To be honest,
you don't know, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't even know what's going on with it in general. As far as I see things starting to open up more and more. This gambling place, this casino.
Me and the chef were laughing this morning. We're going to be the last business to open in the world.
Yeah.
The dirty casino open.
Yeah, casinos opening up.
And I can't do my weddings.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. They're on their way.
It's unbelievable.
So,
well, this was a fun one.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Do you have anything?
No, that was, we were going to talk about something completely different. It was nice. We took a little diversion into this, and it was very, maybe tomorrow we'll talk about what we were going to, but
I want to know what people think. Would regulating and decriminalization of drugs cripple global drug cartels? Because it's a hot issue.
Interesting.
A lot of people don't have different views. Some people think you got to keep it illegal. Some people think totally legal. Some people, so anybody out there has any ideas on that, drop a comment. Remember to remember to subscribe. We're going to really have to get on that bandwagon now.
Yeah, I don't like having to ask people for stuff, but now we're getting to that point. We're hitting closer to 50, and the march goes on, and we will ask. So,
as they say, remember to smash the like button. Really
smash
hit it
that
hard.
Shit.
Yeah, break your computer.
Yep.
And so we'll be back tomorrow with another Future History podcast. Thank you for joining us. And as the Italians say, a salute.
A salute.
All right.